And there is some sort of irony because when I started racing, I loved being at the Tour de France, but I didn't love training. I mean, there were some things I liked about it, but I wasn't going on my bike and be like, where can I go? It was like, okay, go on my bike, do this workout. But it's totally flipped now to where when I come back here, I'm like obsessed with looking at the heat map on Strava and like trying to find new connections, new trails, where people are riding here. I do the same thing all over the world. Anywhere that I am, I'm just like trying to piece together, explore as much of that area as possible. And I use the bike for that. And I love cycling for that side of just being able to explore and be outside and make new connections, whether it's geographically or within a community.
Hello and welcome to the Reach Your Apex podcast. I'm Neal Henderson, elite coach, sports scientist, and founder of Apex Coaching. We're here to share stories of athletes and coaches who have achieved peak endurance experiences, and we love discussing and sharing ideas to help you improve your own health, fitness, and performance. We're coming to you from Boulder, Colorado, and today I'm here with a special guest, Taylor Phinney. And we're going to be talking about his early career as a cyclist, what he's up to today, and what he's thinking about for the future. In some ways, Taylor really needs no introduction, but I'm going to give you a few things anyhow that you might not know about him. So, first off, Taylor was never a junior national champion. I know some of you young riders out there think of him as an idol, as he was a junior world champion, though, in the time trial. Also, in the individual pursuit, he also set a world record in the individual pursuit as a junior, but he was never junior national champion in the United States. He did earn one medal, though, I believe, in cyclocross in 2007, if I recall, Taylor.
That could have happened.
Could have happened. There's a chance.
But yeah, if I could do it all over again,
you wouldn't.
Would have gotten those junior national titles while they were there for the taking.
Sorry, Taylor. You can't time travel past. Time travel only goes forward. I don't know if you know this.
Well, debatable, but...
All right. We'll have another discussion on that later.
Neil deGrasse Tyson is coming in later, right?
Exactly. He spells his name wrong anyhow. Taylor unfortunately did not win a stage of the Tour de France like his father did twice, nor did he win the yellow jersey like his wife did, but he did wear the mountains jersey at the Tour de France, probably the most unlikeliest of all the jerseys at the Tour de France that I could imagine you ever wearing is the mountains jersey, the Maillot Pois, and you did it in, I think, 2018. Is that right?
Yeah, 2017 maybe?
17, 18.
But man, yeah, I'm too big for that jersey. They don't even make it in my size.
That's amazing. That is pretty remarkable. Not everyone, some of you know that, but also, again, I think it feels like I'm kind of harshing on you here.
You are.
Taylor didn't win an Olympic gold medal like his mother, Connie Carpenter.
Listing all of my failures, yeah.
But you know what you did? You did win the unofficial 2012 London Olympics road racing omnium, which is combining your places from both the road race and the time trial, which you happen to finish fourth place in both of those. And so a combined score of 8. Nobody else was even in the top 10 of both. So you are clearly the champion of the 2012 Olympic road racing omnium, which I have made as an unofficial gold medal for you. It's a gold star at least.
That's better than the 2 wooden medals that I had to build myself when I got home.
It is true, and I actually learned a lesson sometime before that. I had said something about, when Davis finished fourth in the 84 road race, that it was like the worst place to finish, and your mom very, very quickly corrected me. It's not the worst place. It's actually pretty amazing. It's better than fifth. It's better than sixth. It's the hardest place to finish potentially at the Olympic Games.
Yeah, it is. It is what it is.
It is what it is.
There's a whole club. I think there's a Facebook group.
Oh, man.
That we're all a part of.
That's kind of cool.
We just commiserate together about what could have been, kind of sponsorships we could have had.
Wow. That's pretty interesting. Well, Taylor, you were the youngest elite individual pursuit world champion in 2009. You were still just a tender 18 years of age, and you repeated it a year later, which is pretty phenomenal. So something else you did twice in your career, Paris-Roubaix as an Espoir or U23. That's a pretty rare feat. I think I know one other rider who may have done that, one Fabian Cancellara.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, you're in a pretty high level of things that you have accomplished. You had, some pro victories.
No junior national titles.
No junior national titles. So, are there any corrections or rebuttals to the above mentioned introduction? Somewhat factoids.
No, but I appreciate that you cut me deep straight off the gate, and I'm ready to cut you back.
All right. Well, let's get into it. So you and I go back a little ways. Here's something that you might remember a little bit about. In 2005, I was a newlywed. And as part of my honeymoon with my wife, we actually went to the Tour de France, and your mom and dad were putting on a camp in Courchevel in France. And so I gave a little talk and did some things there. You were also at the Tour that year. You were with Davis a bit, getting to, follow most of the race. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I think that's actually the first time that I painted the roads.
Yes, I have a picture.
Oh yeah?
I do. I'll dig it up after this because I definitely have a picture of that.
That was like my first real painting experience. And I remember that leaving quite an impact. It was nice. And you're painting on the roads. So it's like, feels sort of illegal, but everybody else is doing it. And it's in France during the tour, so they don't really care. But I remember how nice that was.
During that time, you also had a conversation that maybe, is it true that talking with Axel kind of like got you thinking about your possibility of actually starting to race bikes? Because you had never raced bikes at this point.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact conversations that I had, but I definitely remember meeting Robbie McEwen and meeting Axel, and then obviously spending time with Lance inside of his little bubble and seeing the race from the outside, but also from the inside, and then realizing, oh wow, this is actually super cool, and I want to do that. I would like to do this because it's a lot cooler than I thought it was. Maybe
the Tour is crazy. It's wild. For those, if you haven't been there, I would encourage you at some point in your life, make sure you take a trip. My daughter Abby this summer is going to be getting to a stage in Toulouse. So passing on for me that to my next generation, that joy of what the Tour is and like this amazing craziness that it is. So you started racing at the Stasio Criteriums here in Boulder in 2006.
In a 7-Eleven jersey.
Man, that is so good. They have new ones now.
I know.
Gonna have to get one of those.
Yeah, they do look nice.
So other than, I think you won that first junior race, right? Right out of the gate. Is that correct?
I did, but I think there were like 5 people in the race because it was a 15-16 race. And then as my memory serves, I also won the 17-18 race. And yeah, that was just sort of it. All right, let's do it.
Let's do it. When did you actually think about being a professional? Like that you really wanted to commit to doing, or you had the chance maybe to race at that highest level? Was it at Stasio, or did it happen after that?
I think it was probably when I was trying to qualify for the Olympics, and then on the track and doing all of the travel to LA and then Sydney and Beijing and Denmark and Manchester. And I was away from school because I was still a senior in high school when I was trying to do all that. And I never really felt super connected to school anyways. I had kind of too much energy to sit around in the classroom, and I couldn't focus on what was happening in the classroom. I remember basically in school, in every class, I would be doing the homework for the class after that class. So I was never paying attention in class, but I was doing work for the next class. It was like this weird pattern that I got into. And I did all right in school. I still had a B average, but it didn't call me in the way that it called like my sister, for example. She was very studious. So I just, yeah, being away from school and racing, I was just kind of like, all right, well, if I qualify for the Olympics, then, I mean, I'm not going to college. Like, I'm going to do this thing. So,
All right. I think I saw it. You did the Lions to Boulder TT on like, I think you may have borrowed aero bars and you were like fighting it out. I think Ben Day was on course, and I'm not sure if Chris Baldwin, which both of those guys were on the Toyota United team at the time. They had both been like elite national champions, Australia and US. And you were like giving the business to Ben Day. I remember that. And he said, like, because I was coaching Ben at the time, and he's like, you were passing him on the downhills, and you were on junior gears, like proper, like 5214 biggest gear. And
in a super tuck.
In the super tuck, sprinting, spinning it out, and then super tucking and like going by him. He was on a full TT rig, disc wheel and everything, and like probably pedaling like a 5511, and you were still like rocking by him. To me, like that, like was the holy cow. Like you're already competing against guys who have had pretty good success.
Yeah, I do remember that. I do remember Ben Day commenting on my tuck. I think I always had this innate sense for speed. I think it maybe came from skiing a lot when I was younger, and just that flow or understanding momentum and how to kind of pump through and curve your way to certain speeds, and then just being obsessed with wanting to go as fast as possible.
Get even faster.
And so I feel like the reason I was good at time trialing, or the same with the pursuit, was just I had this understanding of speed or momentum, and I, in kind of a funny way, I sort of bring that into doing some DJ stuff now, because it's very tempo. I mean, it's all about tempo, and it's all about this momentum of energy over time. So all of these things kind of talk to each other. And I don't think I was thinking about being a professional necessarily until I got an email from Lance Armstrong after winning the junior world championships, which actually would have been the year before the Olympics. And he wanted to start this under 23 team. And I was with Jonathan Vaughters on the Slipstream junior team when I was in high school. And I remember that he offered me a contract of $1,000 a month when I was going into my senior year of high school. And that was like the most ridiculous, coolest thing I could have imagined, because I was like counting how many video games I could buy per month with that, and how many lunches I could go out to at school. And then, when I signed with the under 23 team, that salary went up by 10 times. And then it was just like, all right, well, I'm clearly not gonna go to college at this point.
Yep. You had bigger, better things to do.
Yeah.
I mean, that seriously is a wild ride for sure. I remember, I think as a Cat 3, you were earning money, right, at the races, and like using that to buy, was it Xbox at the time? Or
I had Xbox, I had a PlayStation.
Yep.
I had like a little PSP. I was pretty into video games as a young kid, as many people are. And they're not cheap, you know. They were like, back in the day, they were $50 or $60 new. There wasn't this whole, it wasn't online and all of this stuff now. But yeah, I would just be like, I made $300 at the Salida Omnium or whatever this weekend. Or I remember making like $600+. And it's not that we had a team that you have to share it with. It's like me and my parents driving me there. Of course, my parents are covering the hotel and everything. So, I mean, I was very fortunate to have everything taken care of me. And then I could just slice the cash off the top. And then I remember we had a couple places we would go for lunch outside of Boulder High. There was a Chicago deep dish pizza place. And then there was Mustard's Last Stand, which was like the ultimate. You get like chili cheese fries. And I just, if you could go out for lunch and just treat your friends and treat yourself. I mean, that was always my thing. It's like, I got money, like I'm going to spend it. on me. I'm going to spend it on my friends. Like, let's do this. That just seemed like the way to do it. But I also I wasn't saving for anything. And I had my parents who were supportive. And then I had some contracts lined up for the future. So it seemed like, let's treat ourselves.
Yep. That's awesome.
On pizza and video games.
Exactly, on those things, exactly. Are there any like days of training that you recall from like in your earlier career? Like not, as a big time pro, but like in that kind of like younger phase getting into like as a junior U23, so somewhere in that.
I remember doing a lot of those oxygen intervals at the Boulder Center for Sports Medicine.
Yeah.
Which I was probably the only junior, maybe in the world,
possibly,
who was living at altitude and then doing intervals with an oxygen tank.
On the CompuTrainer or Velotron in the lab at Boulder Center for Sports Medicine to do sea level intensity.
Yeah. And I remember that you always had these EFS bars, and those things were just like crack for me. And it was almost like you would be like, I brought you some bars, and I'd be like, give them to me.
You got to earn it.
Yeah, and so I would smash out some intervals and just be eating those bars. And yeah, I remember doing that. Definitely remember having pretty structured training since like right from the beginning, which was also rare back then. It's not rare now, but we were using a power tap power meter right from when I started, because that's, we had the connection with Alan and with power tap, Alan Lim, that is. So yeah, I definitely had like some big early advantages, and also the motivation to go do it. Although I do remember training for the track, there was a period between, I think, the whole month of November, December, and half of January where I didn't ride outside one time. And I only rode the rollers. And like I used to play Guitar Hero while riding the rollers.
Yep.
Like I would just play video games and ride the rollers easy without even doing any structured training. And that was that was my training life that winter, which was always wild to me, that I just like, I'm not going outside.
Yeah.
It's cold.
Yep. It is amazing what you can like do when you just decide, this is what I want. This is how I'm going to do it.
And the race was only 4 minutes, the individual pursuit. So I was like, I'm not going out. Why do I need to go out and do volume? Like,
you don't need 4-hour rides.
Yeah, I'm just trying to go fast. So we would do those oxygen efforts on the trainer, and then otherwise I would just play like Assassin's Creed or Guitar Hero on the PlayStation, which was somewhat of a core exercise to play Guitar Hero on the rollers, because you got to stabilize the rollers and you have to it's the ultimate in multitasking. It's like teaching yourself how to text and drive.
We don't want to teach people that, Taylor, but we do want to teach multitasking different things.
That's why I'm so good at that now. Don't do it, kids.
Yeah. Don't do the text and drive, but definitely do Guitar Hero and
Guitar
ride
Hero
the rollers.
And driving is fine.
Yeah,
though,
I thought you could have made money down on Pearl Street, like busking doing that.
Yeah. If I had needed it,
you didn't need it because you had a good contract already, man.
Yeah.
Jeez.
I mean, yeah, making money in high school. I guess there's kids out there now with TikTok and whatever that are just like raking in the cash in high school. So things are a bit different. But nobody that I knew was making money in high school.
You were that rare one.
So that was nice.
Yeah, there's a lot through those times that I remember. But are there any like race performances during your career that really stand out for you? That you like, it just...
From the early days?
Even through like your
Let's
pro
stay
races.
early days, because it's kind of
Okay.
fun. I feel like my memory is getting bad as I get older.
Okay, so let's
but I can be
dig down.
I can be triggered into reliving things. But I think one of my favorite, well, it wasn't that I was having the best time during it, but we were at the Salida Omnium. This was my first, I think, Pro 1-2
race in Colorado. Yep.
Well, first win was in the Criterium, and it was like a deluge. Like it was raining like crazy, and I just remember that the course was kind of flooding. And I always liked Criteriums anyways. and I think that they shortened the race or something, and it was just like there was something about the extreme weather that I was like, all right, it's on. Like I sort of loved it, or I was just I could handle it, or I could just push myself through it. And I remember, I won that race solo, and I just felt like everybody around me was like standing still, and they couldn't take the corners well, and they couldn't handle the rain and the cold, and I was just like on a mission. It totally inspired me. And when I crossed the finish line, I was like about to collapse or throw up. Like I'd gone way deeper than I even thought. It was sort of like, I think any of the big results that I've had in my career, I would always go into this kind of ultimate flow state, like black zone that I could never just pull out of nowhere. It just happened. So that was one of those times, which was super fun.
Yeah. And
in retrospect, it was fun. I mean, in the
different
time I was suffering, but it's like that was one of my strong suits, was being able to commit in really adverse conditions, because I felt like it just dumbed the whole field down.
And your mastery of like speed and momentum and all of those things too, like when you put that all together.
Yeah, just having the weather, ripping the corners even in the wet. I mean, I wish I could have. If there's one thing I really wish I could have done more of in my career is criteriums, because I started with criteriums, like you said, the Stasio crit. I raced in Colorado. I mean, it's never too late. I kind of think at some point...
Tuesday Night Thunder next month starts again.
I mean, I was asking you about it the other day. I was like, I wonder if I just showed up at a crit, like what would happen? I'm not so into, I don't know, I don't look at the big criterium scene and think like, oh, I want to do that. But there's something about racing locally and just like rocking up, putting a random number on, and then just doing a crit. But I wish I could have. We weren't even allowed to do criteriums when I was a pro.
Early when you were starting racing, like, I mean, you'd go out to Stasio and you were doing the junior races initially, but like in the afternoon, like all the local pros would be showing up. They would have ridden, most of them, up to Carter Lake first, and they come back and then they would do the afternoon Stasio crit. You got to see, the guys who were racing on TV right there. I mean, you raced with like Hank Vogels. I remember one of the races down the CSP crit. You were in a break with, was it Chris Weary, Hank Vogels, and you, or someone, some combination?
Probably.
Like that.
I remember racing with Hank. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember like TJ would come. TJ was racing. TJ Van Garderen was racing for Rabobank, and he would, like you said, go do some 4-hour ride and then show up to the crit at the end. I mean, you couldn't think of any better training, honestly, than being able to do that. And then for whatever reason, we weren't allowed. The World Tour pros weren't allowed to race locally.
They changed the rule, and you were, if it wasn't a UCI certain level race, you were not allowed to race. And they like sent letters and made a very specific, like Stasio criterion was like kind of like targeted as like, don't do that, which is crazy.
Yeah. Like we own you.
Yeah. When it's weird, when that like opened the door to careers for not just you, but others as well. And kids seeing that opportunity and what it is.
Yeah. And I think, something that I feel like I do now is try to be as involved in the community as possible and build out events or rides or just do things that are cycling related or cycling adjacent or something in the community to just get people together, and because that's so important. And so from a racing side, like, you're so far away from everything that's happening in Europe, but it would be cool if the guys can, when they come back, if they can just jump in to something and just like tap into that local community.
Yeah.
Like back in the day, but it is what it is.
Yeah, that connection and just seeing it is some part of things.
Well, yeah, because that's what makes cycling what it is like what you said, is going to the Tour de France and you're like, you don't have to pay to be on the side of the road. And you're just with a bunch of people. Everybody rides bikes. A lot of people ride bikes on the course. You ride bikes through the crowds. You get the kind of vibe of what the racers might feel. And then, of course, when the racers come through, it's a totally different thing, but they're like right in front of you. And so cycling has always been this of the people sport. But over time, and understandably, the pros have kind of bubbled themselves off, because even when I think about Kasia, like she doesn't want to be addressing bike stuff with people all the time, and fans can be a bit overwhelming.
And I mean, in that way, like your relationship with cycling has gone through different phases. Those early days of like the pure part of it, of just riding and racing, of exploring, of things, and then into the full professional realm, into like the ultra professional world tour, and being, at that top level. And I think, that took away your joy for it for a period of time.
Oh, for sure.
And you're in a different place now.
You grow, obviously, as you age. You change and you grow. And I started racing professionally at such a young age. I was 20, racing age 21 when I turned professional. And while there's a lot to achieve in the professional world, the calendar every year is the same. The traditional mindsets of the management are very hard to sway or change. Mm-hmm. And it is a business, ultimately. You're in a performance business, which is ultimately an entertainment business, because you're doing marketing. You don't sign up for it thinking that you're doing marketing, but in order for the team to survive, you have to market the sponsors and the products. So when all of those realities became a bit stale for me, there's nowhere to go. So I did struggle with the sport and the culture and everything, and just wanted to be in the forest and ride bikes for fun.
Back to that core reason, though, you move through that phase too. Like, again, you've been out of the peloton for years, many years now.
Yeah.
And for sure you have a different relationship with cycling than you had back then. Do you think there's like things now that you're sharing with Kasia? Because I mean, she's still at the highest of the high levels. Are there things that, like, the perspective you have now, do you think is useful?
Yeah, I think it is useful, but also she's different than me in the sense that she's just a diehard, and she's also in the front of every single race.
Yeah. I
did not have the body type to be in the front of every single race, nor did I have the mindset. So I would say 90% of the races that I was in, I was just surviving and just making it to the finish. And then you look towards a couple different goals or a time trial here and there to perform. Whereas she's at the head of the race every single race. So she's racing, actually, quote unquote, racing every race, which is very rare in cycling. I mean, you see it in the men's side with like Van der Poel, Pogacar, these guys who are always at the front, but you forget that, you're watching Tour of Flanders and it's Pogacar and Van der Poel and Peterson, and then there's 185 people behind them that are also just trying to finish the race, and you don't see them. So I was more in that group. Like when I finished fifth to last in the Tour de France. I survived the Tour de France, and I had wore the polka dot jersey that one day, and we had a nice breakaway. But otherwise, on the first day, otherwise I was pretty much surviving, and I was there to help in the team time trial and help in the Roubaix stage. So it's a different mentality. Like I felt like my career I was losing that motivation that I had when I was younger to put in that work. Also the level, keeps going higher and higher. So it takes more sacrifice to stay or continue to build through that level. And so I felt like, okay, I can either turn this into a job and just be like a domestique gregario and just hang on for dear life and just punch it out for the next 5 or 6 years, or I can kind of salvage this relationship that I want to have with my bike. And there is some sort of irony, because when I started racing, I loved being at the Tour de France, but I didn't love training. I mean, there were some things I liked about it, but I wasn't going on my bike and being like, where can I go? It was like, okay, go on my bike, do this workout. But it's totally flipped now to where when I come back here, I'm like obsessed with looking at the heat map on Strava and like trying to find new connections, new trails, where people are riding here. I do the same thing all over the world. Anywhere that I am, I'm just like trying to piece together, explore as much of that area as possible. And I use the bike for that. And I love cycling for that side of just being able to explore and be outside and make new connections, whether it's geographically or within a community. And that wasn't what I loved about it at all at first. I just loved winning when I was younger, and that feeling and signing contracts and progressing up this ladder. But at some point, either you keep going up the ladder and you end up at the top like Pogacar, or you have to settle with where you are and decide if you're going to be like, if you love it enough to be like, this is my job and I'm happy with it and I'm going to just stay in the sport like this, or what I did, which was take myself out of it, and that was really in self-preservation for my body, but in my mind, and also just for the relationship that I wanted to have with cycling, which has played such an important role in my life.
Is there anything that you do miss about that time of being a professional? Like, is there, you made choices, of course, and you're in a far different place, but like, is there anything that you still kind of like miss now that you have a better appreciation for with a few years?
Yeah, I mean, the ease of life is like, when you are a professional, you think that everybody's watching you and you need to be performing, and you're like always on this clock, or I always felt like I was kind of behind and I was chasing all the time with training and with like staying ahead of injuries and stuff. But the reality is like, and what I see with my wife is like, you wake up, you have breakfast, you go out and you train for 2 to 6 hours, and you come home, you eat, and you do Normatec, and you lay on the bed, and you just chill. Yeah. And you don't think about, now I'm thinking about like, how do I make money in this world? Yeah. I'm trying to sell, I want to make these t-shirts, and like, how do I make that happen? And building out websites and trying to promote things, and then, or I'm going to go do this project, or I'm doing this project. And when you're a professional athlete, which I never thought about this when I was doing it, but I can think about it now, it's like, it's so simple.
Yeah, the logistics of travel so well maintained for you. And
yeah, as a pro, everybody, they book all of your flights for you. They book the taxi.
Somebody picks you up.
You don't have to pay for anything. It's just like, and within that, another kind of thing that sort of cracked me from that environment was that everybody is complaining about everything. Like all of your teammates are complaining, like, oh, this one year was 30 minutes late to the airport to pick us up. I'm like, bro, you could be on a train right now, you could be on a bus. Like, somebody came and picked you up from the airport and drove like 2 hours each way to pick you up, and it's just
pretty nice.
So there was a lot of like negativity even within a lot of commiseration even within all of the team structures that I was involved in, that like, guys, come on.
Yeah. Are there friends from the peloton that you still keep in touch with now, like pretty frequently, or is it like a very small core group, or is it a lot of folks that you kind of loosely see or catch up with on occasion? Yeah,
there's a couple folks. I mean, it seems like even with old friends, like everybody goes off and is living their life somewhere, so it's easy to reconnect if you're in the same place. But I mean, Lachlan is one of them. I don't see him that much, maybe once a year.
He does a lot of stuff, man. He gets around.
Yeah, but we always sort of speak the same language, I feel like. I mean, I definitely connect with some old Italian teammates like Daniel Oss. I'm trying to design a jersey for him right now, actually. Doing some TV stuff in the UK. I've kind of reconnect with like Adam Blythe. And yeah, you'll see people. I try to connect with guys like Howes when I'm back in Boulder, even though I haven't seen him, but he's also quite busy. TJ Van Garderen, he comes through. Girona every once in a while. He spends a lot of time in Mallorca, but it's like close, but not close enough that we spend that much time together. But living in Girona pretty much full time, and, being between Girona and Andorra, I end up seeing quite a lot of cyclists, which in my first couple of years of retirement, I was like, what the hell am I doing here? Like, I remember the first summer after I retired, Kasha booked this 3-week training camp in Andorra. And then I was just up there in Pas de la Casa, which I don't know if you've ever been to Pas de la Casa, but it's like the worst little city in Andorra. And I'm like, what the hell am I doing here? Like, this is my year of freedom,
Why?
And I'm at a freaking altitude training camp. I'm not even training. I was just going hiking, and I wasn't happy about it. But at some point, you just kind of remove your ego from everything, or you continue to try to. But I see a lot of people. I'll see people just randomly at bike events, also like somebody like Matt Bodine, who works for SRAM now. I'm always super happy to see him. And he worked with EF for quite a while as like communications director. So you end up seeing like around the races or in town also people that were directors or that you worked with, like soigneurs or bus drivers. And that's sort of the ultimate of the cycling world, is that you end up seeing all these people that you've spent a concentrated amount of time with and just randomly all over the world, know?
And you have that connection. Real.
Yeah, because you did something weird in some country together.
Well, when you ride these days, what kind of riding do you like to do the most? I mean, you seem to be more on the adventure side from what I see. I mean, even tomorrow you've got a ride here that you've kind of helped organize, we'll say, and clearly like an adventurous side of like going on harder routes kind of in a way, getting places. Yeah, well, I would say I think my ride philosophy is how to get from A to B or A to A if it's a lap, but you're going to have some destinations along the way. How to get there in the most fun, interesting, and least busy way possible. So I just got a road bike again this year, and first couple of rides, I was immediately just like, this is so dangerous, like all of these cars passing me. I spent the last 5-6 years in the trails on gravel roads, and I love riding asphalt if it's a nice, quiet road. But I'm ultimately just trying to create the best experience for myself and also for anybody that I'm riding with. And that involves quiet and nature, some challenge that is different than just doing a super long climb. So maybe you connect 2 trails by a little hike-a-bike, or it's like reframing the perspective that I always had, which was like time, distance, kph, like how watts, average watts, all of this. Like I was so obsessed with that for so long. And now it's about, okay, I can be outside all day. I'm not saying I'm doing 6 hours today. I'm just saying it's more thinking about it in an organic way. Like when I was training for the Traca, I was like, okay, I'm going to go do this climb 3 different ways. And however long it takes me is however long it takes me. I'm going to spend a while to build out the route, but I'm just going to be out there all day, essentially achieving this challenge. Less about KJs, or it's just like go out there, be outside, push yourself in a unique way, because you can on a bike, no matter what you're doing, it's a different kind of a challenge. So I also like going fast. I like riding fast with groups and stuff, but it's only when it's really kind of in a safe environment and I don't feel like we're in the middle of the road and nobody's in danger, I enjoy seeing you enjoying riding in this way.
Yeah.
It's cool.
It feels like it's just what inspires me. I love maps, and I love, like I said, the heat map is like probably the greatest kind of invention, if you want to call it, of the modern cycling world for me, just because you can go anywhere in the world. We were in Bali on vacation and I'm on the heat map in Bali, just looking at these different ways that people connect through. And that's not even a cycling destination. It's not a great place to ride. But yeah, this ride that we have tomorrow, it's really just, it's about this, I designed this jersey for ASOS. They're coming out with this new community called the Collective 13, which I also helped them name. They had created this logo out of 13 ASOS logos. And I immediately thought of cycling's relationship to the number 13, where if anybody in a race has the number 13, they always flip one of them around for superstition to ward off bad luck. Cycling is always about, there's always been this thing of like, don't pass the salt, like hand to hand, put it on the table. If you drop the salt, you got to put it over your shoulder. So like superstition has played a big part in my life, in the sport, not necessarily for me, but for everybody around. And superstition ultimately is a fear of something happening. And the best rides that I've had are, there's always some sort of element of like fear, where you're like, are we gonna be all right? Like we're up pretty high here, like I don't know about this next trail that we're gonna take. But if you do it as a group, you always feel safer. And then you have this thing that you can commune about later. So the design is all about that sort of connection through a little bit of fear, a little bit of challenge. So the ride tomorrow is a big, but I'm also not into pushing people if they don't want to. So the ride tomorrow is this big, challenging route, but there's bailout points like all through the day. So it's not like, hey, you have to do this.
Yeah, it's all or none.
With us, it's like, come along, push yourself as much as you want within your comfort range. And then if you do the whole thing, sweet, you'll have a cool story about it. And if not, it's still beautiful. You're still up in the mountains, and all of the bailout routes are safe and easy to do anyways. So,
well, I'm looking forward to riding with you tomorrow. When you're not riding, Taylor,
are you going to wear the pink skin suit tomorrow?
I may come in a special outfit and ready for fun.
Nice.
I mean, it's almost the last day of the Giro anyhow, so
that's true.
Celebrate. Anyhow,
we can call you Del Toro.
I don't know. I'm kind of bullish.
You are bullish.
A little headstrong sometimes. Not that fast, though. I can tell you that. Especially not uphills. Maybe downhill still on occasion.
Me neither. I can go long, but I don't go. I only go fast if I'm on the wheel. That's what I learned at the track. Just sucking wheels.
Just let someone else roll at speed.
All day.
So bike still is a major part of your life. Music is another big thing. That's definitely like you put a lot of time and energy there. Like, what are you finding there? That's like the most. What drives you to be in that space? I
don't think I'm trying to be like a professional DJ of the music. I always listened to extended sets or mixes that electronic. We're talking mostly about electronic music, but within the world of the DJ, any music that exists, you can play, like being on the radio. So I was always really interested, or I just loved listening to all of these different journeys through sound and through different landscapes and genres of sound while I was training when I was younger. As I got older, I didn't want to ride. Like, I don't ride with headphones now.
It's a separate thing for you.
I just like being outside. I think before, when I was training, I needed like energy. I needed something to lose myself in order to be able to complete the duration of whatever I was trying to achieve. And then at the same time, I also like feeling music in a live setting. I like going to different parties, I guess you could call them. I don't party necessarily, but I love like sound in a room. I'm obsessed with speakers and amplification and compression and limiting things and how different spaces are set up with sound. And so I just love it. It's something that I'm really interested in. And then on the actual mixing side of things, it's a way to just lose yourself in kind of a narrative journey that you're sort of collaging all of these different pieces of different musicians together in a hopefully seamless way in order to express something of the time that you're listening to it. So it's a bit of an abstract way of explaining it, but it's also about creating community, and it's a way to provide an experience and provide a release for like a younger version of myself, basically. So I go to these parties. We do a lot of parties around different bike events also, because I always felt that in the World Tour, it was so strict and professional. You know, we won Tour of Flanders with Alberto Bettiol, and we didn't have a party afterwards, you know? And we would have done that when we were younger as under 23 or juniors, but it feels like within the gravel world at least, there's more room for, okay, we have this crazy thing, we all do this crazy thing, and then there's a party if you want to get loose and have a party. So I'm not necessarily getting inebriated and in that way of the party, but I like orchestrating groups, like movement within groups. And I do that on the bike. And then I also want to do it with music. So it's not all about bike events. There's a collective in Girona that I mix with all these guys. There's one other guy who's my age. Everybody else is like 22 to 25. I mix with these guys in Boulder who are all just like post-frat CU guys that just graduated. And it's just a funny, you know, it's like music can connect so many people. So it's just a funny way to be able to tie yourself into different communities and then also build out communities. And I'm very community oriented.
I mean, celebrating, that's something that I think gets lost a lot of times in that elite sport level. Like even winning the Tour of Flanders, like having a teammate that wins that, it again, the team is contributing, everyone's doing some part, and like to know that there wasn't like that awesome celebration is kind of like, oh man, that's a bummer. Like 2016, I was there working with our women's team pursuit team, and they won a silver medal, which earning a silver medal is pretty amazing. Again, they didn't celebrate it in that moment. And I was like, talk to you because you were still there. You were done with your race. I'm like, well, let's just go. So we went out to Copacabana, like took the nasty smelling bus. Remember that? I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
Ride down to Copacabana just to get away from the village and be able to like have a meal out someplace and like celebrate life even at that point in some way.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is like, again, it
makes
me sad when I see people that are in the place and in the space and have the opportunity, like they're achieving these things in some cases, even if it's not the win, like to not enjoy it is just sad.
Well, yeah, I mean, you work so hard for something, and I understand if people are not into that kind of celebration necessarily, and it doesn't mean that you have to go out and
go crazy,
get messed up and feel terrible the next day, but it's just about, I felt that was something that was missing, at least for me, and in the circle that I was in, was like, what are we doing if we're not enjoying this after we put all this work in? Because it seems like we're just working to one deadline, and then once the deadline is complete, we're just working directly again. There's no, we need a weekend kind of, and you have the off season in the end of the year, sure, but you're also blown out from the season, and it takes you like 3-4 weeks to even settle into not be fully training, and then you start training
and
again.
Now you're back at it.
So I do think it's important, but I think that the younger generation is better at it now than the older generation. They seem to be a bit more balanced, and also in terms of life and being interested in creative things while at the same time being able to focus on sport. That's at least my interpretation with the interactions that I've had with some younger kids. So
yeah, in that way, are there any kind of advice that you would give to like a younger rider at this day and age coming up? You know, not your own self going back knowing what you know now, but like somebody, if you met a kid tomorrow on the ride that's like, hey, I want to do what you've done, like, what would you say?
I think the most important thing is to, when you're younger, at least for me, but I see it with other people and other professionals, is you think that everybody is relying on you in some way. You think that the people supporting you are supporting you because they somehow rely on you. But the reality is that people are supporting you because they're choosing to support you and they want to see you do well. And of course, when Kasia does well, it gives a lot of emotion to her community, to me, to the family. But there's no expectation or there's no weight of, I need you to do this so that I can feel good about your result. You know, it's kind of like you take it as a cherry on top of, like, it's an added bonus as a supporter. And if I could, I know you said not if I could go back, but if I could go back, I would try to not think about that like I am one of 20 plus people on this team. The management is focusing on everybody on the team and not just on me. Like, do what you need to do for yourself. Take time to recover from injuries. Train in the way that you want to train. Believe in the way that you do things and the way that you race. And really, it's the simplest thing is, if you want to do it, you're going to do it. If you really want to do it. If you don't really want to do it, then it's not going to happen. But there's this team actually from Germany called the Rose Racing Circle. And there's 19 kids on this team and they are self-managed. So they're all in their early 20s. And like, they go to the Tracka, they went to Unbound, they do some road racing, some UCI road races. And that's their whole philosophy, is like, we got tired of being in a situation where there was a management telling us what we needed to do, when we realized if we want to do it, like if a rider really wants to do something, if they really want to train, they really want to perform, you don't need some old person to tell you, like, you better do this for this and this and this. And especially with the model that exists nowadays with social media and content creation, is a lot of brands are just looking for content. And then the racing side is the racing side.
Secondary, almost, in a way. It's a different
I
element.
think at the highest level, I think, UAE Team Emirates, they need to perform. They have that expectation. And in the World Tour, you need results. But if you're just trying to make it there, you don't necessarily need some old Belgian or German guy screaming at you or telling you that you're not training well, or just playing mind games with you, because some of these older guys do that. So that really struck me as a cool model of, like, we're just going to do this ourselves. And I think also another important thing, which I've talked about, is just community. It's like finding kids that are like you, that you can build stuff with, because I was always I felt always like a one-man show. I had you as a coach, I had my parents, I had the team, but I never thought to build something with people around me. And that's what I'm seeing in the younger generation now, is they're realizing the strength in numbers, and that you can do stuff more, you can do bigger things as a group than you can by yourself. And that sort of hierarchy of who runs things will just take care of itself by who's able to do it, because not everybody can take up all of the roles.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of brings that old saying, like, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with others.
So I went fast.
You went very fast. But
now we're going long.
You're going long. You're doing a lot of great things. Well, Taylor, I really appreciate being able to sit down with you here and go over some old stuff from the past and talk about where you're at now and a little bit of maybe what's in the future.
Cool, man. Always a pleasure to see you, Neal.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Reach Your Apex podcast. Thanks for tuning in. We're here on YouTube Podcasts, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. You can also connect with us on social media. And Taylor, any final words?
Just have fun.
Have fun. You heard it from the big man.
Ciao, ciao.